Are you ready for the next big shortage? Well, with prices rising, supply chains getting shaky, and uncertainty around every corner, now is the time to stock up. But don't just grab anything. Some grocery products are absolute must-haves before April of 2025. From everyday essentials to long-shelf lifesavers, this list is going to make sure that you and your family stay prepared, no matter what happens. So before the shelves go empty or prices go up, let's dive into the top 10 grocery products that you need to stockpile. Let's get started. Number 10, shelf-stable cheese. Imagine a world without cheese. No gooey grilled cheese sandwiches, no creamy mac and cheese, or nachos dripping in melty goodness. Think about that for a second. Life would suck, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's right, pretty bleak. Cheese isn't just food, though. It's comfort, it's nostalgia, it's that magical ingredient that can take any boring meal from meh to mind-blowingly delicious. But here's the problem. Cheese in its usual form doesn't last very long. Your beloved cheddar, mozzarella, and Parmesan, they all need refrigeration, so if things go south, be it power outages, food shortages, or just rising prices, your cheese stash won't survive. That's exactly why shelf-stable cheese needs to be part of your stockpile. Luckily, there are plenty of long-lasting cheese options that don't require refrigeration. Canned cheese, freeze-dried cheese, and wax-sealed cheese wheels can last for years without spoiling. Some varieties, like processed cheese spreads and canned cheddar, can stay good for 10 years or more, while freeze-dried cheese can hold up for over 25 years when stored properly. And here's the best part. You just rehydrate it, and it's just as good as fresh. That means long after grocery stores are empty and fresh dairy is a distant memory, you can still enjoy a cheesy meal. Survival mac and cheese? Check. Cheesy mashed potatoes? No problem. Even pizza can still be on the menu if you plan ahead. But this isn't just about flavor, it's about survival. Cheese is packed with protein, calcium, and essential fats, all of which are crucial when food is scarce. In a crisis, you need high-calorie, nutrient-rich foods that don't take up much space, and cheese fits the bill perfectly. Now let's be real, eating the same bland survival food day after day can get depressing fast. Now imagine if you could sprinkle cheese into your meals and instantly make them better. Rice and beans? Way tastier with cheese. Boring crackers? Instantly upgraded. Cheese has the power to transform the most basic foods into something comforting and satisfying, which is exactly what you'll need in tough times. This isn't a new idea either. Cheese has been a survival food for centuries. In fact, some of the world's oldest cheese was found in an Egyptian tomb, over 3,200 years old. During World War II, canned cheese was a staple for soldiers because it provided long-lasting, calorie-dense nutrition that didn't need refrigeration. Some people have even opened decades-old cans of cheese, and believe it or not, it was still perfectly edible. And another fun fact, certain aged cheeses, like cheddar and Parmesan, naturally have antibacterial properties, which help them last much longer than fresh dairy products. People have been stockpiling cheese for generations, so why shouldn't you? And let's be real for a second. How many of your favorite meals involve cheese? Pizza, tacos, burgers, pastas, casseroles. I mean, cheese is everywhere. Could you really go months or even years without it? I don't know if I could go a week without it, but imagine trying to enjoy your favorite comfort foods without that creamy, melty deliciousness. It's a sad thought, right? Well, here's the good news. You don't have to. By stocking up on canned cheese, freeze-dried cheese, and wax cheese wheels now, you're making sure that no matter what happens, you still have access to one of life's greatest pleasures. Because let's be honest, a world without cheese, that's not a world that anyone wants to live in. Number 9, powdered eggs. And let's be real, what's cheese without eggs? Whether you're dreaming of fluffy omelets, golden pancakes, or gooey chocolate chip cookies, eggs are the backbone of comfort food. But fresh eggs, they spoil fast, they crack easy, and need refrigeration, which is pretty inconvenient when you're prepping for long-term survival. That's why powdered eggs are a total game changer. They last up to 10 years, take almost no space, and all it takes is a little water to bring them back to life. Omelets? Back on the menu. Scrambled eggs? No problem. And baked goods? You bet. If you think powdered eggs are some sort of modern-day gimmick, think again. They've been saving breakfast since World War II. Fresh eggs were a luxury back then, so soldiers and civilians alike relied on powdered eggs to keep their meals going. Even NASA used them in space missions because when you're floating in zero gravity, you don't want a dozen fresh eggs cracking and making a mess in your spaceship. If they're good enough for astronauts, then they're definitely good enough for your emergency stash. But here's the best part. Powdered eggs aren't just a backup plan, they're a survival superfood. They're packed with protein, vitamins, and healthy fats, all which will keep you energized and full when food supplies run low. Imagine running out of eggs in the middle of baking, or worse, craving a big breakfast during a crisis and realizing that there's no way to get more. That is an eggless nightmare you don't want to experience. And during wartime rationing, eggs were so valuable that people used them as currency. Can you imagine a future where powdered eggs became a new gold standard in bartering? It's not as crazy as it sounds. Whether you're trading with neighbors or just making sure you never have to go without a proper breakfast, powdered eggs are a must-have for any serious stockpile. So ask yourself, Could you go months without eggs? If the thought alone makes you panic, it's time to stock up before it's too late. Number 8. Hardtack. And what's the perfect partner for eggs? Bread, of course. But let's be honest, fresh bread won't last in a long-term food crisis, and that's where hardtack comes in. A nearly indestructible survival bread that has kept people alive for centuries. Made from just flour, water, and salt, this stuff is so tough that Civil War soldiers called it tooth dullers because biting into it felt like chewing on a rock. But don't let that scare you once softened in soup, tea, or even just plain water. It transforms into a hearty, filling meal that can last for decades if stored properly. Hardtack has been a survival staple since the 1800s, carried by sailors, soldiers, and pioneers that were crossing the frontier. This isn't some random old-timey snack. It's literally been found in shipwrecks hundreds of years old and still technically edible. Some Civil War-era hardtack is even preserved in museums today, proving just how long this stuff can last. It may not win a Michelin star, but when it comes to durability, affordability, and reliability, nothing else even comes close. And here's the best part. You don't have to be a pioneer or a soldier to enjoy it. You can make it yourself with just 3 ingredients that you probably already have. Once baked, it becomes nearly indestructible, but paired with soup, peanut butter, or even a little jam, and it actually becomes, dare I say, decent. Plus, when disaster strikes, you're not looking for a gourmet meal. You're looking for something reliable, filling, and built to last. Now imagine running out of bread in the middle of an emergency. No sandwiches, no toast, no way to soak up soup. Wouldn't it be nice to have a backup plan that never really goes bad? Hardtack has survived wars, ocean voyages, and the Wild West, so if history taught us anything, it's that this rock-solid biscuit just might outlast us all. So the real question is, will you be the one stockpiling it, or the one wishing that you had? Number 7. Canned butter and ghee. What's bread without butter? Dry, sad, and honestly a little bit depressing. That's why canned butter and ghee are absolute survival must-haves. These shelf-stable fats bring richness, flavor, and essential calories to your meals without needing refrigeration. Because let's be real, what's the point of having survival bread if you don't have something to slather on top? Butter is usually one of the first things to disappear in a crisis, and once it's gone, you're stuck with dry food and a serious case of flavor deprivation. But canned butter changes the game. It stays fresh for years, ready to melt into mashed potatoes, spread on a hardtack, or add creamy goodness to any dish. It's like a little taste of normal life, no matter how bad things get. And if you want to take it up a notch, ghee, its even more powerful cousin, might just be the ultimate survival fat. Ghee has been a staple in Indian and Middle Eastern cooking for thousands of years, and for good reason. It's butter that's been cooked down to remove moisture, which means it doesn't spoil and has an insane shelf life. How insane? Well, some cultures have literally buried ghee for over 100 years and found that it was still edible. That means if you stockpile it now, you might just be passing it down to your grandkids. Imagine cracking open a jar decades from now and still getting that smooth golden richness. Now that is a survival food worth having. But beyond making food taste better, these fats are critical for survival. In an emergency, high-calorie foods can keep you going, and fat is one of the most efficient sources of long-lasting energy. Plus, both butter and ghee are packed with essential fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, and K, which help keep your immune system strong and your body functioning properly. And here's something wild during World War II. When butter shortages hit hard, people got desperate and started making wartime butter out of mashed potatoes and a little milk. No one wants to go through that again, so why not avoid the struggle and stock up now? Because when everything else goes south, wouldn't it be nice to have that creamy golden goodness to make survival feel just a little more civilized? I thought so. Number 6, instant mashed potatoes. And what better pair to butter and ghee than a steaming bowl of mashed potatoes? When it comes to comfort food that's easy, filling, and practically effortless, instant mashed potatoes are a survival MVP. Just add water, or even better, a little canned butter or ghee, and boom, you've got a warm, hearty meal in minutes. Potatoes have literally saved lives throughout history. Just ask Ireland, where they were the backbone of the diet for centuries. When the Great Famine hit in the 1800s, it was because of a potato blight that wiped out crops, proving just how important spuds were for survival. And if history taught us anything, it's this. Never take potatoes for granted. They're packed with carbs for energy, fiber, and keep you full, and essential nutrients like potassium and vitamin C, things your body desperately needs in a crisis. But here's the problem. Fresh spuds, they don't last forever. They sprout, rot, and attract pests if they aren't stored properly. Instant mashed potatoes, on the other hand, can last up to 10 years when sealed and stored correctly. That's a decade of fluffy, delicious potatoes without worrying about spoilage. And they're not just great on their own, you can mix them into soups to make them creamier, use them to thicken stews, or even turn them into survival-friendly potato pancakes. Versatility? You bet. And let's not forget about the space connection. During the space race, NASA considered dehydrated potatoes as astronaut food because they're light, nutritious, and ridiculously easy to prepare. If they're good enough for space travel, they're definitely good enough for your stockpile. Now imagine a food crisis, cold nights, stressful days, limited options. Wouldn't it be nice to enjoy still a warm, buttery bowl of mashed potatoes? The convenience, the comfort, the pure satisfaction, it's all something you don't want to go without. So the real question is, are you stocking up or are you risking a spudless future? Because let's be honest, a world without mashed potatoes is a world that no one wants to live in. Get them now before you're left with nothing but regret and an empty plate. Number 5. Freeze-dried meat. But what's a meal without protein? Fresh meat is one of the first things to disappear in a crisis, and unless you've got a farm, a stocked freezer with an endless power supply, or a bow and arrow and some serious hunting skills, getting enough protein could be a real challenge. That's why freeze-dried meat is an absolute game changer. It lasts for over 25 years, retains nearly all of its original flavor and nutrition, and is easy to prepare by just adding water. Now, one minute it's a lightweight, crunchy piece of meat, and the next it's back to being juicy, tender, and ready to eat. And don't think that this is some modern survivalist trick. Freeze-drying food has been around for centuries. The Inca civilization was ahead of the game, using an early form of freeze-drying in the Andes Mountains to keep food preserved for long journeys. Fast forward to today, and NASA relies on freeze-dried meat to feed astronauts in space. Why? Well, because it's lightweight, packed with protein, and lasts practically forever. If it's good enough for someone floating around in zero gravity, it's definitely good enough for your emergency stash. Let's talk about variety. You're not stuck with bland survival rations. You can get freeze-dried chicken, beef, turkey, even bacon. That means tacos, stews, sandwiches, and barbecue are still on the menu when things get rough. Plus, meat is one of the best sources of protein and essential nutrients, which your body needs to stay strong and energized, especially in a high-stress situation. In a crisis, eating enough protein isn't just about satisfaction, it's about survival. Now picture this. Grocery store shelves are wiped clean. Fresh meat? Now a distant memory, and all you have left are canned beans and rice. Sounds pretty bleak, right? Well, imagine opening your stockpile and finding a stash of freeze-dried steak or chicken ready to go. Suddenly, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. So when fresh meat becomes a luxury, will you still be one enjoying it or wishing that you had stocked up? Don't wait until it's too late. Get your supply now while you can. Number 4, honey. And what's a meal without a little sweetness? If there's one food that deserves the title of immortal, it's honey. This golden nectar never expires. Seriously, archaeologists discovered 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs, and it was still perfectly edible. If it could survive the test of time in mummies, it can definitely handle your emergency pantry. But honey's not just about sweetness, it's a survival powerhouse. It's packed with natural energy, making it a perfect source of quick fuel when you need a boost. It's also an incredible natural medicine with antibacterial, antifungal, and wound-healing properties. In ancient times, warriors used honey to treat battle wounds, and even today, hospitals use medical-grade honey for burn victims. Got a sore throat? Honey. Need to disinfect a cut? Honey. Looking for an all-natural cough syrup? You guessed it, honey again. Now, let's talk about versatility. Drizzle it over hardtack, stir it into tea, mix it with peanut butter, or use it as a natural preservative for fruits and nuts. Unlike sugar, which can spike and crash your energy, honey provides a steady source of fuel, perfect for when food is scarce and you have to stay alert. Here's a fun fact. Bees travel about 55,000 miles to produce just 1 pound of honey. That's twice around the Earth. Considering all that effort, it'd be a shame not to keep a few jars around. Now imagine a world without honey. No natural sweetener, no quick energy source, no ancient superfood in your pantry. Sounds bleak, right? So the real question is, will you be the one enjoying the endless benefits or wishing that you had stocked up? Number 3, ramen noodles. When it comes to quick, cheap, and ridiculously satisfying, nothing could beat a ramen noodle pack. Now, these little bricks of instant goodness have been fueling broke college kids, like me, late-night cravings, and survivalists for decades, and really for good reason. They're dirt cheap, easy to store, and they last for years without losing their flavor. Just add hot water, and in minutes, you've got a steaming bowl of comfort food. But did you know that ramen was actually invented as a survival food? After World War II, Japan faced a massive food shortage, and instant ramen was created as an affordable, long-lasting meal to feed the masses. Fast forward to today, and it's become a global staple, with over 100 billion servings of ramen eaten every year. That's enough to circle the Earth more than 13 times in noodle form. Now, on its own, ramen is a solid emergency meal, but here's where it gets fun. You can level it up. Toss in freeze-dried veggies, canned meat, or even powdered eggs, and suddenly you've got a hearty protein-packed meal instead of just a snack. Feeling creative? Well, crush it up and use it as a crunchy topping. Mix it into stir fries, or even eat it raw as a crispy and salty treat. And let's be real, survival food doesn't have to be miserable. When stress gets high, the options are limited, and there's something comforting about a warm, familiar bowl of noodles. So when disaster strikes, do you want to be eating bland, boring rations, or do you want a stash of delicious, slurp-worthy ramen ready to go? Stock up now because you'll miss it when it's gone. Number 2, seaweed. And speaking of underrated survival food, let's talk about seaweed, the ocean superfood. Many people don't think about stocking up on dried seaweed, but they absolutely should. Why? Well, this stuff is packed with nutrients. It's ridiculously lightweight, and it's been fueling warriors for centuries. In fact, samurai warriors used to eat seaweed before battle to boost endurance. And if it was good enough for those legendary fighters, it's got to be good enough for your emergency stash. But what makes seaweed such a powerhouse? Well, for starters, it's loaded with iodine, a critical nutrient for thyroid health. Without enough iodine, your body can suffer from serious fatigue, brain fog, and metabolism issues, things that you definitely don't want in a survival situation. And here's the kicker. Most people, they don't get enough iodine, especially if salt supplies run low, since iodized salt is one of the main sources in a modern diet. Having seaweed on hand can solve that problem. It's also rich in antioxidants, minerals, and even protein, making it one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. Plus, dried seaweed can last for years, takes up almost no space, and can be eaten straight out of the bag, added to soups, or crumbled over rice and noodles for a nutritional boost. Some survival experts even call it nature's multivitamin because of how many essential nutrients it contains. Here's a fun fact. During the Irish potato famine, people near the coast survived by eating seaweed when crops failed. That is how powerful it is. It literally kept entire populations alive. Now imagine a world where food is scarce and nutrition is hard to come by. Wouldn't it be nice to have a lightweight, easy-to-store superfood that can keep you going strong? Well, stock up now because once people realize how valuable seaweed is, it just might disappear off the shelves. And number 1, chocolate. Finally, let's talk about chocolate, because if there's one thing that can keep spirits high in tough times, it's this. Survival isn't just about calories and nutrition, but also about morale. And nothing lifts a mood quite like a bite of rich, velvety chocolate. In fact, soldiers in World War II were issued chocolate rations for quick energy and a mental boost. Why? Well, in stressful situations like war, a little bit of sweetness can be the difference between feeling defeated and pushing on. But chocolate isn't just a comfort food. It's packed with antioxidants, iron, and magnesium, which can help fight stress and keep your brain sharp. Dark chocolate in particular is known to boost serotonin levels, meaning it's a literal happiness booster in food form. And here's a fun fact. The Aztecs value cocoa so highly that they used it as currency. That's right, chocolate was once as good as gold. If the world ever goes sideways, who's to say it won't be that valuable again? And let's be honest, can you really imagine a world without chocolate? It's lightweight, lasts for years, and if stored properly, can be eaten straight, melted into drinks, and can be added to trail mixes for extra energy. Plus, in an emergency, you're going to want something that reminds you that life isn't all doom and gloom. Now, think for a second. Everything is uncertain. Food is scarce, stress is through the roof, and then you remember that secret stash of chocolate. One bite, and suddenly things don't seem quite so bad. So are you stocking up now, or are you going to be wishing you had when it's too late? Now, preparedness isn't just about having food. It's about having the right food. With rising prices and unpredictable shortages, now is the time to get ahead. Which of these unique survival foods surprised you the most? Well, let us know in the comments below, and we'll catch you on our next video.